Hello and welcome to day 16 of my 21-day challenge to share around ceremony and ritual, which I believe leads to inner reverence, inner connection. So today I'm going to talk about the Celtic wheel of the year, which follows the Earth's cycles, and there are 8 specific points on them. And the reason I'm doing this is because we're coming up to the summer solstice, and a lot of what I've been talking about is leading up to the solstice. So what is a solstice? The solstice is, I have to think about this, whether there is, well, with the summer solstice, it's the longest day and the shortest night, and the winter solstice, it's the opposite. And the equinoxes are where day and night are equal, approximately equal, where you have that balance. Okay, so what I've done is drawn this. So what we have in the north, where we have, in the northern part of the altar, in the north, we have the winter solstice. So the winter solstice is approximately the 20th to the 23rd of December. Then we have, I'll just go around the main 4 quarters first of all. So then we have the spring equinox, which is around about the 20th to the 23rd of March, and that's where we placed air. North was where we had our stone. And then here we have the summer solstice. So this is what we're going to come back to. And here we have fire. And in the east, the autumn, so 20th to the 23rd of June. And then the autumn equinox, which is the 20th to the 23rd of September, and where we find water. So then we have these other festivals in between. You have Imbolc. Imbolc is at the end of January and the beginning of February, and kind of it's called Imbolc after used milk. It's like the first milk. It's really when life starts again after winter. It's an indication of not spring, but the sap's beginning to rise and life is returning. Then we have down here Beltane, which is the end of April, beginning of May, and this is like the peak of spring. Beltane is it's the beginning of the fire coming. It's really heralding, I'm trying to keep this steady, heralding summer, certainly spring. And and it's to do with fire and fertility. You might know it as May Day. Back in the time of our ancient traditions, and still today, a lot of Druids and pagans will see it as a time of fertility and potency. Everything is beginning to emerge. But when the Christians took over and started calling it May Day, of course, it became about virgins and purity. Then we have Lammas. Some of you might know it as Lunasa, and that's like the first harvest when the corn's been brought in. So a great celebration around bringing in the harvest, the first harvest. And then Samhain, which again you may know as Halloween, is the end of October, beginning of November, and that's the final harvest. That's the really closing in, coming down, gathering in your nuts, getting everything into the home. Back in the day, it's when they would come down from the mountains. Everybody, the animals would come closer to home, preparing for winter, and the shutting down of into the dream time. So we're going to talk a little bit about the summer solstice, and this is a time of fire, and the sun is at its height of power. We can see it out there in the world at the minute. Absolute abundance. Everything is flourishing. The bees, the birds, just everything has been manifested. And it is a time of action and fire. But as we get closer to the solstice, we start to realize that that height of the sun, that power, that intensity is actually hitting that midway point, because the solstice will give us the last day of the longest light. And then after that, there'll be a transition into, it's like a beginning and an end, a death and a rebirth of the light starting to go, the fire beginning to subside somewhat. So it's like a dual celebration, the solstice. You're still celebrating the sun and all that it's brought, but you're beginning to become aware that the more going down, the air starts to change and the light starts to change and the energy is beginning to drop. It's not that apparent, but you could begin to feel a kind of shift away from such intensity of action. But it's a great time to still be considering what you want to do. There's still fire in your belly. So it's also called the Festival of Attainment. And why is it called that? Well, around this time, a lot of what you might do, and this is an exercise for you to think about. What have I achieved in the last 6 months? What have I done since the winter solstice? And you reflect back on the things that you've done, the things that you've really enjoyed doing, the things you've started, the things maybe you've started and you haven't continued with, but you've put them on the back burner, but you might still want to pick them up at a later stage. You look back and you just generally contemplate and reflect on your life. And then you have this sort of transition, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, because this transition between the summer solstice is really important to be very present with, because the next part of the exercise is, so what would I like to take forward? What did I not do that I feel I would like to do? What did I do too much of? What have I learned from it? You know, who am I? Who was I? And where do I want to be? And who do I want to be? And this is what I keep saying about the importance of ceremony and ritual. It really brings us back to ourselves. So that's a great exercise to do. So I'll talk a little bit about how can we prepare. So even though I said it's the 20th to the 23rd, it is in actual fact, the solstice is mostly celebrated on the 21st. And of course I'm talking here about the northern hemisphere. It's the total opposite in the southern hemisphere. We'll talk a little bit more about what you can do as a ceremony on the day. But here's just some ideas in preparation for the coming summer solstice. You can gather in flowers, like sunflowers. You can start to think about what might you like to do on that day. Maybe even clear a bit of your diary or put a bit in the day that's primarily for you and celebrating all that I've said, you know, all the abundance, the manifestation, all the things that you've experienced. Now, I'm not saying that all these things are joyous and joyful, but there is an intensity and a dynamism to all that happens at this time of year. And I know for a lot of us that could even be used to describe some of the emotions we've been feeling. You know, some of the fire has been put out by very strong water. The emotions of our sense of our grief, our loss, our sadness, our sorrow, all part of life. So it's worth reflecting on that. Was there a lot of water Is there a lot of water in my life at this year? How can I create a balance? I mean, we can't erase the experiences we have, but we can look at how we were through them. What might we put in place for ourselves just to give us, in the reflection process, something that can inform us moving forward? I don't want to, I really am aware that for a lot of people, this summer may not have felt like abundant, may not have felt like they were flourishing. So it's worth even looking at that and taking time to respect and honour that in a way that does allow you to move forward. And what can you do at the summer solstice to represent and symbolise that as much as the joy that you have in your life? Because this is about the duality. This is about the light and the dark. And it's really important not to disregard, dismiss, or not recognise both aspects of the light, the day and the night, the light and the dark. So what can you do? You can start maybe to put water out on your altar and charge it up for the solstice. You can start maybe adding things like rose petal. I've put rose petals on this because rose is a flower of the summer solstice. Now, rose petals you can put in your water. So a couple of days beforehand, put some rose petals in your water. They just infuse the water with such a delicious flavour and smell. Other plants that are out at the moment that you can use, like herbs, to infuse. You can infuse your vinegar with chive flowers. That gives such a great flavour. But you've got lavender, you've got St. John's wort, you've got mugwort, you've got so many herbs out there. Lemon balm, elderflower. Elderflower is out at the moment, and you can do so much if you gather that. And if you gather it around the solstice, just think of the energy that will contain. Just Google either elderflower cordial or elderflower champagne. It's not, I mean, it's got a tiny amount of alcohol, but it's a fizzy elderflower water. It's called champagne because it does have a little bit in. The tree associated with the summer solstice is the oak. Maybe find an oak that you can sit by and just contemplate. Maybe do that exercise I talked about. Look back on your life and forwards under the oak tree. You can also start to bring things in that might be symbolic or representative of the sun, of fire, of the summer and the solstice, what it means to you. You can start maybe to bring in sunflowers. You can even find fabric or scarves and wrap them around things, maybe reds and ambers and all sorts of deep fiery colours. What else can you do? Let's think. Oh, you can start to, you can dance and be creative. That was the thing. Fire is creation. If we use that fire in our bellies to create, it gives us such energy. I did this today. This was the other thing I did. I wanted to do it to show you where the 8 Point festivals all lay on the circle. But what I discovered was I got really creative with it, and it was so enjoyable that it deeply connected me with the up and coming solstice. So do something that will connect you with it. What I did was as well, this circle, I went into the garden and I got some soil and I mixed it with water. And then using my finger, I just painted this on. So this connected me even more deeply with the soil, with the earth, that's giving forth the life that is appearing in my garden. And then I drew the sacred spiral and added flowers. What you could do to this, or what I could do to this, is I could remove this bit of paper and start placing items in here and create like a prayer drawing. I could put in all sorts to express my gratitude to the earth, to the sun. I could put in seeds, I could put more petals in. I could put in, I'm just looking out to see what is it, leaves. I could put in anything, crystals, shells, nuts, anything at all that obviously is biodegradable and is in an offering and a thanks. Wrap it up and either bury it or burn it. At this time of year, you could take, you could take that exercise and look back on what you've done. And then you could look at what you want to do, and you could create a bundle, which is like a prayer bundle, and then burn it and just let it go into the atmosphere. Put your dreams and hopes into it and let go of maybe what you don't want. And let it go. With that picture that I've just done, I could create and put more in there, putting more thanks into it, more gratitude, more prayers, and I could do that for me as well. What I will say about fire is it works very quickly. Because it transforms and transmutes really quickly, do ask for it to happen with ease and grace. And if you don't want it to happen that quickly, then bury it. Just depend if you wanted to go into the earth with your dreams for the dream time through winter. If you're thinking of it in terms of planting seeds that will go into the ground and germinate over the winter period, then bury it in the ground and allow it to decompose slowly. Okay, so that's it. I hope that's clear. That's like a whistle-stop tour of the Celtic year, and it would just take me forever to explain it in much more detail. But what I will go on to do is, so some preparation to lead up, maybe even find a stone or something on your altar. Start preparing your altar for the solstice, but we will talk more about what you could do on the day. All right, well, thank you so much, and thank you all for your comments. Bless you all, and I was going to say have a great weekend, but it's only Thursday. I'm wishing my life away. All right, take care. All the best. Thank you.